There's quite a lot of resources out there that talk about repermissioning, and I think it's quite a clunky term. I mean, it's the best we have, but it's quite a clunky term, repermissioning. So I guess the 6 legal basis, lawful basis to apply to your processing under the GDPR so that you're evidence in compliance with it. Assuming that you have previously gone through an exercise of saying we capture this information based on this lawful basis, then you've got a choice really of whether you continue to adopt that standard or move to another. The reason why repermissioning feels clunky to me is we'll talk about consent, I'm sure, and part of the difficulty in the new definition of consent is that a data controller has to evidence consent was obtained at the GDPR level. So you have to have this audit, this documented evidence that the data subject saw the right level of privacy statement, it was freely given, it was specific, informed, there was an unambiguous and active opt-in, and we documented all of that. Now, if you know, historic opt-in, historic consent wasn't at that level, so I don't think there's a CRM in the world, nor likely an organisation in the world that went to that length to opt their marketing database in to that level, because there was just no need. And we talked before about the different grey areas across Europe of data protection law. So there was never a need for it. I think repermissioning then becomes a bit of an odd one, because if consent never really existed, if you were never really relying on GDPR consent, then now's a good time to start thinking about, you know, that historical data. Can it live under the GDPR level of consent? And I'd probably argue not, because unless it's free, you know, specific, freely given, no pre-tick boxes, then you're going to have to get some form of repermission to raise the level. But you might be able to talk a good game around legitimate interest. Legitimate interest allows for essentially the right to object. There's a 3-stage test, and we'll probably get into more detail about that as we go through. But for me, you know, repermissioning is more about taking stock of the data you've got, understanding what the legal basis was, whether that legal basis as was can still be applied in GDPR terms, and if it can, great, you don't have to do anything, you can use that data. If it can't, then you're going to have to start thinking about a program of re-engagement, I say, rather than repermissioning, where you define a legal basis, a lawful basis, and you approach those customers. The challenge very much becomes, especially from an email perspective, you know, we've seen fines given out to the likes of Flybe and Honda for getting this wrong. Make sure that by sending these emails requesting permission, that you have permission now to do so. You know, don't market your opt-out list. Yeah. You know, and make sure you're applying common sense to it as well. There'll be a tranche of your database that are warmest. So segment. You use the marketing savvy. Segment based on those that are actively clicking, actively opening. Start there. They're your warmest. They're the ones you really want. They're the most engaged. They're the ones you want opted in to the right level of permission, of consent, if that's the basis you're choosing.